I'm not going to stand on stage, so I'm going to stand down here. So, I don't know, can you guys see this screen over there? Yeah. All right. I just want to make sure everybody can see it from there, or we can open it a little more. So we're going to talk today about leaving a legacy. And I'm going to talk about three pieces of this. Your legacy to yourself, first. Then we're going to talk about the legacy that your company can leave to your community. And then we're going to talk about one that I never even thought of, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I stumbled into it, which is the legacy that you as management, as a business owner, as whatever you are, executive, the legacy you can leave for your employees. And I will tell you that this is really written, most of the time I tend to address business owners, but everything we're talking about applies at all different levels. Let's just jump in. And what I'm going to do is tell you this in kind of a story format, because that's the way I learn. I am, in fact, not a professional speaker. I'm a software engineer. I've never had any training in speaking. Somebody asked me, do you give speeches? And I said, no, I just talk about stuff. So I'm going to talk about stuff, but this is stuff that I care about. And I'm going to tell you it in story form, because that's the only way I learn. If somebody tells me something, I always wind up saying, wait, so how would that work? Give me an example. So that's what you're going to get tonight, the stories of how I got to these points. So I'm going to start with this. My best friend, his name is Michael. Michael is a live out loud, kind of crazy guy. In fact, what do you not see in this picture? Any safety equipment at all. Look how high Michael is. And the crazy guy is smiling. In fact, I think the only reason his hair is that long is because I told him to cut it at work one day. Michael, by the way, Michael set every record for a sport that's called free solo. I think pretty much everyone else that tried it is dead, but nonetheless, he holds all the records. Because he one day wondered how high he could climb with no safety equipment, and then he wondered what the world record is, and then he said to me, I'm going to set every world record. And so this is what he was doing when we weren't at work. He came to work for me for one of my companies. So good news, bad news. The good news is he never fell, which is pretty amazing. 60 Minutes, 2020, all these shows did a special on the real Spider-Man, right? But here's the bad news. Years ago, he drowned in the Irish Sea. And he was swimming. And if any of you remember, if you took your kids to the movie, well, you didn't have to take your kids, you could just go, to the movie Finding Nemo. Remember the turtles swim in the Gulf Stream? Well, that's real, and he swam into it. And we had the Irish Navy, we had the Coast Guard, we had divers and helicopters and trying to find them, and we never did. This is the kind of best friend, by the way, that Michael would call me. We'd hang up, and then he'd call me right back. Men don't usually do this. And I'd say, Michael, you just called me. And he said, yeah, but I forgot to tell you I love you. That's the kind of friend this was. So this was a really, really hard loss for me, losing my best friend. And Michael, what was really, really interesting about Michael, like I said, was this was a guy that lived his life. He wasn't waiting for retirement. He wasn't waiting for anything. But I'm going to tell you what happened. I'll be honest with you guys, for weeks and weeks, every time the phone rang, I couldn't let go, my heart wouldn't let go. If it rang right now, I would have told you guys, hang on, and I would have ran off stage, because I was 100% sure every time my phone rang, someone found it. And for weeks, I couldn't let go. And weeks went by, and the phone rang, and no one ever found it. And at the end of 3 months, his parents called me, and they said, Jeff, we gotta let go. He's gone. And so we said, okay, let's finally do the funeral 3 months later, since we never found him or anything. So 3 months later, we decided to do a funeral, and that is in fact not his funeral. I just took that off the internet. If that's your funeral, you should not have posted personal pictures on the internet. I just had to have something that looked like a funeral. We decided to have the funeral in one of Michael's favorite places, the beach in Malibu. And we went to the beach, and it was a small private funeral. And his parents asked me to do the speaking. And this is the one speech I didn't want to give, right? And I'll tell you why, because I did not want to say was. I could not refer to my friend in the past tense, so I just couldn't do it. We're out there in Malibu, and it's a private funeral, and there was a giant group of hundreds of people down the beach. And I went down there, and I said, if you guys don't mind, this is a private funeral, so if you could stay over there. And they said, we're here for a funeral. And I said, what funeral are you here for? 300 climbers from all over the world got on the internet, and they all decided to come to the United States for this funeral, so to tribute him. So we weren't ready for that, so we had to rearrange the funeral. So I had time to just wait and walk around. And I'm walking around at my best friend's funeral, and I'm listening to people talk. What do you do at a funeral? You talk about the person. Summarize my best friend's life. But here was the problem. They were wrong. I was sitting there thinking, that isn't Michael, that isn't what he was about, right? If this is what you thought his life was, he'd be very, very upset right now. And that really bothered me. And so I went over and I sat by myself in a corner table. And I did something I'm going to challenge you guys to do. Not tonight, but I want you to do this sometime for legacy. I sat down, and I asked myself this question. If this was my funeral, what would the summary be? What would people be saying literally if I was having my funeral right now? And so I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down, and I challenge you to do this sometime, but be honest. How do you think your life would be summarized if it ended today? And I will tell you what I wrote down. People talk about all of our business accomplishments, right? Priceline.com and UBID and the other companies and deals we did. And I was afraid that, and I hear people talk about that when they talk about it, they talk about our business stuff. And I wrote down what I honestly thought people would say at my funeral, right? The companies that we built. And I sat there depressed. And I said, if that's the summary of my life, he built a lot of companies or they had great businesses, and my life is an epic waste. It was a failure. And so I turned the paper over, and I wrote what I want you guys to write on the backside. What do you want people to say? When it's your funeral, what do you think they'll say? What do you want them to say? And I will tell you guys what I wanted. I was pretty clear. I don't want to be judged by the number of dollars I made. I want to be judged by the number of other people's lives I made better. Okay? So I thought at my funeral, I want people to walk up and say, my life was even just a little bit better because Jeff was in it. Right? That's what I want my funeral to be, not what I thought it was going to be. So then it led me to the third question, which is really what got us here tonight. Are you doing anything that's going to make that true? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. If you summarized your life today, and then you wrote down what you really want your legacy to be, what are you doing that's ever going to create that legacy? And I realized I really wasn't at that point in my life. What I was doing business deals. And I wasn't really doing stuff that was making other people's lives better. So I was never going to have the legacy that I wanted to have. And that's sort of what led to everything that we're going to talk about tonight. So I started thinking about something. I have to tell you something that later it seemed eerie at Michael's funeral. He said something to me one day. When Michael would go climb, I had a running joke with him. I was actually worried. It's my best friend, and he would climb cliffs, right, with no ropes. And he would say, I'm going climbing today. And I would say, could you wait till next week, because I really don't have time to plan your funeral, right? And that was our running joke. Okay, but I was really worried that he would fall one day. And one day I grabbed him by both arms and I said, Michael, when are you going to stop? Because I really am afraid you're going to kill yourself. And he said something profound to me. He said, Jeff, I'll take 40 years of my life the way I live it than 90 years of what most people do. And he walked away. And what struck me was he meant that. He said, I'll take 40 years of the way I'm living this life. And then he died at 42 years old. And I stood there that day on that beach thinking, did he know? But more importantly, what was it about the way Michael lived his life that he would have traded 40 years of his for 90 years of the average life? And I figured out what it was. Because he loved his life. He loved the way his life was going. And most people don't. Most people have a lot of regrets, and they're not nearly as happy as they pretend to be. And I started thinking about all that. And Michael would have considered 40 years of his life a success. So I said, well, then what is success? And I really started thinking about it, and I realized this. We are raised to believe success is a combination of 1, 2, or 3 of these things. Money, fame, or power. And if you're rich, if someone's rich, we call them successful. She made it. Right? But in truth, I literally have billionaire friends who are miserable. So that must not be it. If somebody's famous, we say they're successful. And yet I have very famous friends who are miserable. So that might not be it. Hey, Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, Robin Williams, fame, money, good, that wasn't enough, was it? That must not be success. And yet Michael would have been willing, and he did, give up his life after 40 and say, I'm good, I did great. So my new definition of success is this. Any person that you meet that at that moment in their life can turn around, look back on their life and say, man, what a ride. Somebody that says, wow, I like my life the way it is, I don't want to trade it with anybody's. Because by the way, I'm doing a session where these, just being honest, these women were obsessing that they wished they were Beyonce. And I said, instead of wishing you had Beyonce's life, why don't you put that same energy into making yours one that you actually like, right? And so what Michael's secret was he likes his life. And so my new definition of success is anybody that looks back and says, don't touch mine. I like mistakes and all. I like my life the way it's going. And here's the way I summarize it. If you will be able to look back and say, I use my time on this earth well, as opposed to having long periods of time that you're like, man, I don't know what I did that for. Can you look back, will you be able to, and say, I really use my time on this earth well? So my definition of that, of what enables you to say, I use my time well, was simply this. Are you doing the things that you wanted to do, the things you said you were going to do, that you look back and say, time well spent? And so I got curious. We're going to call them dreams for now, but I'm going to redefine that in a minute. I said, what happens with dreams? So I decided to do this little informal study over the years. I started with kids. I think that might be a classroom here. I think I might have been somewhere in Chicago. And I started working with kids and asking kids, what is your dream? Now remember, our definition tonight, some people don't like the word dream, it sounds irresponsible. So our definition of dream is something that you want to do so that you will look back and say, I spent my time on this planet well. That's our definition, okay? So I asked kids, what are your dreams? What are the things you want to do with your life so that it's going to be an epic life? By the way, no kid doesn't answer. Like, that's a double negative. I think that's illegal in the state of Illinois. Every kid has an answer fast. Every kid has a list, even if it's astronaut. They still have an idea of the definition of an epic life and one that they're going to love. So as I started asking them that, by the way, I left this school, and I took that slide out. A teacher pulled me aside and said, would you please stop telling our children to pursue their dreams and passions? It's irresponsible, they need to go get a job. And I was like, wow, you're the teacher? Right? So then I started thinking, how bad is that problem? And so you know what I did? I pulled up 20 Midwestern universities, and you know how they rate themselves? Job placement rate. So do you know what that implies? The only thing that matters is did you get a job, and do you have a job? And then all the focus is on raising kids so they get a job. Because universities don't ask, did we raise a well-rounded, fulfilled, happy human being? They just say, did we get her employed? And I said, geez, this problem's worse than I thought. So I started asking adults, what are your dreams? This is supposed to be someone that's somewhat unhappy. I don't know, I found that on the internet too. But I started asking adults, tell me what your dreams are. And you know what adults do when you ask that? They roll their eyes and say, come on, man. And I said, no, just tell me. And this is what they say, Jeff, at some point you got to grow up. And I said, what does that mean? And they say, I have a husband, a wife, a mortgage, kids, whatever, car payments. And I said, and they said, so you got to grow up. And I said, what does that mean? And I tell you, when people say to me it's time to grow up, you know what I think? Is that growing up or is that just giving up? Because what they're doing is giving up on all the stuff they wanted to do because now I got a mortgage and I got to be a grown-up and a responsible adult. So the implication there is, your job is this thing you have to do and pay your bills because you're a grown-up. And maybe someday, if there's any time, money, or energy left over later in your life, you'll go to the stuff you actually wanted to do, right? And my whole message tonight is, why do we accept that premise? Why is business, the job we do, mutually exclusive from dreams and passions? Because I get that everywhere. And when I ask adults to tell me what they dreamed, I said, then what was your dream before you became a grown-up, right? And they don't want to talk about it. And they don't want to be reminded of it because no one wants to be reminded of the thing they were going to do that they never did. So I'm going to tell you what I have done my entire life. The first thing is stop hiding. Remember, the dream is things, I don't care how old you are in this room. It's anything you still would like to do that you'll look back and say, man, that was time well spent. That's our definition. So what I do is I write them down so I can't hide from them. And I'm going to tell you where I put them. I write the things I want to do on a white index card. And I put it on the bathroom mirror. And I will tell you why it's on the bathroom mirror. And I'm going to tell you about my first one in just a minute, and that's it. At the end of every day, where do you wind up? I wind up in the bathroom brushing my teeth. And what do? I look at that little white card and I say to myself, Jeff, what did you do today? to get any closer to the life you're going to look back at and say, time well spent. And in the morning, where do I start every day? Brushing my teeth in the bathroom, and I say to myself, Jeff, what are you going to do today that's going to get you any closer to the legacy you actually want? And there's one other reason why they're on a mirror. Guess what happens when you look in a mirror? You have to look yourself in the eyes and lie and say, okay, next year I'm really going to do this, right? Next year I'm really going to pursue that thing or learn to fly a plane or whatever it is, right? And it's really hard to lie looking yourself in the eyes. So that's where I put mine. This is the story I want to tell you of the very first one that I ever did. And I'll tell you where this came from. I grew up in a little desert town in Arizona. And I grew up in a little town that nobody ever left. Now, I want to be clear about something tonight. Nothing I'm saying has anything to do with right or wrong. We're not judging anybody's life choices. We're talking about DNA here, right? Your DNA should drive your decisions, not what everybody else tells you to do. And so what I'm telling you to do is I'm just telling you the story of my DNA. I'm not judging those other people, but no one I grew up with wanted to go anywhere or ever leave or do anything. And I did. And it started right here. In 7th grade, we had to read a Mark Twain book. And I picked the book up and I opened it, and in the front cover was a Mark Twain quote that changed my life. The quote said this. It said, travel is the fatal enemy of prejudice. And I was just floored. And I was up all night that night, 7th grade, sitting there thinking about it. And I started thinking about our world today. People that hate Muslims that have never met one. Seriously? You're going to hate somebody you don't even know? So I started thinking what Mark Twain's message was, how are you judging Muslims until you've broken bread in their house with their family, right? And then I started thinking about, because I heard somebody make a racist remark about somebody from Africa. How are you hating someone you've never even met? So I said, until I have dinner with a family in their home in Africa, who am I to judge? Anybody. So I got this idea. For me to become the person, the man I want to be, I need to do this. If I can visit 50 countries before I die, so that I can develop empathy and actually break bread with families that don't look like me and understand them instead of judging them, maybe I'll be the person I want, and maybe I'll look back one day and say, okay, that was time well spent. I'm actually happy with the way I used this life, because that's what I think the goal is here. So I wrote that down, put it on my mirror, long ago in my life. But I'm going to be honest with you guys and tell you what happened. My parents told me the same thing your parents told you, and then unfortunately you're telling your kids. Go to a good school to get a good education so you can get a good job in a good company, get a good salary, right? So I did. I went and I got a good job. I got an software engineering degree, like I told you guys. I got a good job at a good company and I had a good salary. And my parents were proud. Our son has a good job at a good company. He has a good salary. You know what I did not have, that no one ever asked me? A good life. Nobody ever asked me that. Parents make sure your kids have a job, but you don't really ask them if they're happy or fulfilled. We just don't. Right? And no one asked me. My parents were bragging about me. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hated my job every single day. One day, bless you, one day I was sitting in the office and thinking, I cannot believe I honked at the guy in front of me today so I could get there faster. I was like, why didn't I let every car in Chicago? I don't even want to do it. What am I doing? And so I was sitting there one day in my office, and the lunch bell rang, right? It was like the old Flintstone cartoons. Everybody runs out when the lunch bell. And figuratively, and I go get in the elevator to go to lunch to get out of the building that I hate. And there's a friend of mine in the elevator. And I was like, Brian, what are you doing here? And he said, I work here. What are you doing here? I said, I work here. I said, how has a friend of mine worked for the same company? I've never seen you. And he said, I'm in marketing. I'm up on the 6th floor. And I said, oh, that explains it. I'm in engineering. Engineering's on 4, right? I just go to 4 every day. That's why I've never seen you. And I went home that night, and I was brushing my teeth, and I was looking at this card on the mirror. By the way, I love it after I give this talk when people around the world send me a picture of their bathroom mirror, and they stick something up there so they focus on it. They say, I am going to do this thing, right? I was looking at my bathroom mirror and looking at this, and I literally dropped my toothbrush in the sink. And I said, wow, how am I ever going to visit 50 countries? I've never even visited the 6th floor. And you guys will particularly get a kick out of this. The most exotic place I'd ever been in my life was one time I accidentally pushed 5 instead of 4, and I walked into the exotic land of accounting. And one of my engineering friends, I was like, dude, where are we? And he said, we're in accounting, they don't speak our language, run. Okay? That's the most exotic place I've ever been, accounting on 5. So I'm gonna tell you guys, I quit my job. I quit the engineering job. And I said, I am never gonna have the life, the legacy I want. I'm not gonna look back and say, I used my time well at this point. And so I quit. And well, I'm gonna tell you what happened. I was in, and what's important is I want you to not accept that your job, again, is this adult responsibility, and you have to do it because you're a grown-up now, and the things you dream of doing are things you'll only do if there's time or money left over. That's what I'm trying to kill here. Well, I'll tell you what happened with me. I was unemployed. I quit the business. I quit the job. By the way, I gave this talk to somebody in another city recently, and he had been in accounting for finance for 22 years, and he quit the next day. He called me in tears. And he said, I quit my job. And I said, why? And he said, because I'm not going anywhere I ever wanted to go. And you made me realize it. And I was like, my job, I'm telling you that because I'm not telling people to quit, right? I'm telling you to find a way to do all of the things you want to do and quit accepting that you can't. So here's what happened. I quit my job. I'm in an airport. I bought a ticket to go see somebody that was my mentor. Unfortunately, he did not yet know he was my mentor because I hadn't gone there yet. But that was the goal. And the line was an hour long in the airport on a Friday afternoon. And back then you had to wait in line to get a boarding pass. And at the end of an hour, I got up there and missed the flight. And that's an expensive problem when you're 20-something-year-old and unemployed. By the way, everyone's mad at me now. My parents are calling their friends back. Yeah, the kid we told you about that was a good kid, we were wrong, he's a moron. He quit his job. He had a good salary, and now we have an unemployed kid. Everybody's mad at me. And I'm standing there in this line, and after an hour, I'm arguing with the person. One of my other DNA problems is incredible impatience. I am that guy in line that's saying, how can this take so long? And everyone's saying, dude, it just takes that long, shut up. And I'm not gonna shut up. There must be some better way to do this, right? And so I'm standing there, and I said to the woman, I said, this is crazy. She said, what? I said, it took an hour, right? And all you did was hit print. She said, next. Looked at my ID, hit print, and handed me a boarding pass. And I said, this is ridiculous that I waited an hour for you to use the printer. And she's like, you have to have a boarding pass to get on a plane. I said, I understand that, ma'am, but it's an hour, and all you did was use the printer. There's a line a mile long of people watching you use the printer. And she was like, next. So I turned to all the people, I was frustrated, I turned to the people there. But a thought occurred to me. This is why I'm telling you to write down some things you still want to do with the rest of your life on the mirror. Because I thought about that every day. And I was thinking, my goal in life is, I have two. One is I want to see the world. I want to visit 50 countries, not just the fourth floor every day. But two, you are a responsible adult. You do have a mortgage. You do have bills to pay. How can I do both? So because that was my goal, I recognized my moment. And I'm telling you that because if that's not your goal, you'll never see it. And you'll never do it. So I said, this might be it. I turned to all these people in line, by the way. And I started asking people, am I the only one that thinks this is absurd, that you stand in line for an hour just to get a boarding pass? Yeah, everybody was groaning. I was like, okay, I might be onto something. By the way, in entrepreneur school, an MBA school, they teach you market research. Really, you just need groan research, right? If everybody in line's groaning, you're probably onto something. And then I did something else that I learned, which is called value equation. Value equation is simply this. Will enough people in the world pay you more for the thing you really want to do in life than it costs you to do it? If the answer is no, congratulations, you have a hobby, okay? Hobbies are things you spend your money doing. Businesses are things people pay you to do because they want you to do it. That's a pretty good way to live. So I said, would anybody in this line give me $5 if I could give you a boarding pass now? And people started bidding. $10, $50. I was like, oh my God, I don't actually have them. And one guy in their Armani suit's like, young man, I'll give you $25 if you get me out of this line right now. My time is worth, I think he billed at $700 an hour. My time is worth way more than $25 an hour. So I started my first company. I quit my safe job. I started a company. If you have ever checked in at an airport in a kiosk, probably anywhere in the world, we invented those. That was our first product. Yeah, sometimes people still send me a text from an airport somewhere just with a thank you note. They'll just say thanks when they get that thing. And here's what happened. We created this product, we patented this product, we started shipping them to airports around the world, right? Well, let me tell you a story. I told you this was going to happen in the Netherlands. One day, friends of mine are calling Saturday college football, big game, are you coming over? I said, actually, I'm not going to be here this weekend. They said, where are you going? I said, check this out, the Netherlands. And they're like, how are you going to the Netherlands? I said, this is the coolest thing ever. It's my job, okay? And so here's what happened. I'm in my office one day. The phone rings. You Mr. Hoffman? I said, yeah. And they said, this is KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. Now, I admit, I think I slept through 6th grade geography. So I was like, Dutch, that's not German, they're Deutsch, right? It's not Denmark, they're Danish. The guy's like, we're from the Netherlands. I was like, yeah, I knew that. I said, what can I help you with? And he said, we would love you to come, we heard about your product, and you come over to the Netherlands to show it to us. And I was like, wow, I'd love to, but I'm a startup, right? I quit my job, I started a company on my own to pursue the life I want, and I can't afford a ticket to Europe. And he said, what part of KLM Royal Dutch Airline did you miss? Right? I was like, this is good. He said, you can just hop on our plane. And I said, cool, but I can't afford a hotel in Europe. And he said, KLM owns half the hotels in Amsterdam. I was like, this is getting better by the minute. So I got on a plane, and I went there. And when I got there, the KLM guys said to me, have you ever been to the Netherlands before? I said, I've never even been to the 6th floor. Like, what? I said, never mind, inside joke. And he said, anyway, we could talk you into staying a few days to see our country on us. I said, okay, this is like a hidden camera show, isn't it? Because there's no way this is, that's country number 3 of my 50, right? Rivers and windmills and tulips, are you kidding me? That's all I ever wanted to do was see places like that. At the end, this was even the better part. At the end, I'm leaving, and they said, Mr. Hoffman, I said, yeah. They said, don't forget your check. I was waiting my check. They said, yeah, we want to buy those things. Can you put some in the airport? I was like, I'm getting paid to see countries. My job was to go to a different country every week and install these things, right? But the point is, it wasn't an accident. It's because I was consciously saying, can I design a way to do the things I want to do so I don't look back at my life and have a list of stuff I never got around to, right? And so, by the way, this is kind of a side note. I don't think I have. Oh, by the way, you're probably less surprised now that I was involved in something like that, right? Because that was a travel company. This company today, so Priceline was a company that was started on a small table like this, relatively a small group of people. The company today does business in 200 countries, right? And you know, this is now silly, this is many, many years later. But when people were saying, you can't go pursue your dreams, you gotta be a grown-up, this company is worth $100 billion today. That's the current market cap. And it was created by a group of people passionate about traveling. So it turns out, apparently, you can go pursue your passions and dreams and run a business, but not unless you do it by design. My goal, these are just some random shots, was to visit 50 countries before I die, which I'm hoping is not soon. If it is, you guys saw the last speech. I was just in the Philippines like days ago. That was country 94 out of 50 for me. Thank you. The coolest part about it is I get paid to do it now. It's actually my job. That was all I ever wanted. So that formula being said, I'm going to go through this next part fast in the interest of time tonight. But I was like, well, that kind of worked out. I paid my bills. I saw the world, right? And I'm actually a grown-up now, right? Because we can afford fair bills, and I'm doing the things I want to do without regrets. I'm seeing the world. So I went back to the mirror, and this is what I'm challenging you to do. Again, I don't care how young or old you are. I tore that one off, said travel one worked. And I said, what's next? And I'll tell you guys, I love music, right? And I love music just because it's the universal language. And one night I went to a concert, and I heard the guy goes out on stage, 30,000 people. He says, are you people ready to rock? And the whole place erupts. And I turned to my friend and I said, who's that guy? And they said, he's the producer. And I said, I want to be that guy. And they're like, Jeff, you're a software engineer. I said, no, just like none of you, you might be an accountant, a CPA, a CFO. No, you're not. You are a human being that learned that skill. And by the same way you learn finance, why can't you learn something else you want to do with your life? Everybody told me you're a software engineer, you can't do music. I said the same way I learned software, I'm going to try to learn, what I am is a learner. Try to learn this business. So I studied the business. I tried to figure out where I could make a business, right? It ain't that hard in the sense that when you study a business, Businesses are there to make things better and solve problems for people. What does the music biz do? I wanted to produce a concert, right? I can't sing, I can't write music, you definitely do not want to see me dance, right? But I made a list. Somebody's got to finance. Artists don't finance their own tours. They go on tour when somebody offers them a tour deal. Somebody has to finance it, and guess what else artists don't do? They don't call people and say, will you come to my concert Friday night? Marketing and promotional people do that. And I was like, wait, I do this stuff every day. I figured out how to finance my ideas, and I figured out how to market and promote them. How is that any different? So we launched a music company to go create concerts, and I just had this was just a particular night, the reason I put that one. By the way, I made a joke to a friend one time in high school that said he liked Elton John's music, and I have this there's no 12-step cure for sarcasm, it turns out, so I'm eternally screwed. But I said in my sarcasm one day in high school, I said to my friends, one day when Elton John and I are friends, I'll tell him you like his music. And all my friends were like, dude, in no alternate lifetimes are you ever going to be friends with Elton John. And I remember thinking this, your attitude determines your outcome. If you don't believe you can create any of the things you want, the life you want, then you can't, right? But I have this board at home where I write down things that mean something to me. It's in my office. And one of the things my friends will tell you I always say is, improbable, yes. Impossible, no. The odds that Elton John and I were going to become friends, some kid from the desert and an international, he's a knight, for God's sake. He's Sir Elton John. Improbable, yes. Impossible, no. But this was an amazing night in my life because I had an out-of-body experience. Elton and I were doing a charity concert. I gave all the money away to mostly children's charities. And when he said, are you going to go out there and introduce me? I had this out-of-body experience. I went out on stage, and there were 30,000 people there, sold out. And all my friends were somewhere in there, and I heard this voice say, are you people ready to rock? And I kind of looked around, I was like, oh my God, that was me. I actually went out there and said this thing because it was one of the moments, one of the things I said, I can't look back on my life the way it was before unless I do some of the things I wanted to do. But I was able to do that because we started a business. I found a way to make this a profitable venture. We later spun that off and said, I was watching a band on TV, and they were waving goodbye. I was like, where are they going? And somebody said, on the tour bus, they're going on tour. And I was like, wait, I'm going to go on tour, right? And my friend's like, here he goes again. So we started a tour company. And this is embarrassing, but this is me on tour at NSYNC. That's Justin Timberlake standing over my shoulder there. But it was a moment on tour. NSYNC became the biggest band in the world at one point. And they were so big that they were playing football stadiums like the Rolling Stones. And this was Heinz Stadium, where the Steelers play. 70,000 seats, sold out 2 nights in a row. The place was rocking. And I was standing with the boys, and I turned to Justin Timberlake, and I said, this was one of these moments. I said, Justin, did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine you'd be standing right here feeling this moment right now? And he's like, Jeff, did you? And I stood there and I said, I guess kind of, yeah. He said, did you ever dream you'd be the guy standing here with us? Kind of, yeah, because I said, there's got to be a way I can design businesses around the things that I want to do with my life. And so after that, I thought, well, okay, I'll share that moment with you. Less embarrassing, but still a little crazy. A few years ago, I won a Grammy. And that's me on the Grammy red carpet. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm getting yelled at by all the paparazzi because I'm taking pictures of them taking pictures of me because it's so stupid, right? That they're all taking my picture. They're yelling, Jeff, Jeff, and I was like, how do they even know my name? And that little dude to the right of me with the clipboard, he says, because I'm holding your name in a giant sign right next to you. And he's like, rookie? I was like, sorry, this isn't my thing. Somebody in this audience said, Jeff, how does this feel? You know what I said? I said, this is the dream of software engineers everywhere. And they're like, what? I was like, but I want to tell you, this is now going to lead into the legacy piece. I walked out of there, and I went outside, and I was on this was never on my mirror. I never dreamed of winning a Grammy. We produced our own jazz album in a studio, and it got nominated for a Grammy for Best Jazz Album, and then it won. So there we are winning a Grammy on the red carpet for the music we produced. And I went outside, and I want to share with you guys how I feel, because it's going to lead into the whole rest of my life. When I was standing there thinking, I was having this moment, and I was thinking, what bizarre, twisted path of my life ever led me to standing on the Grammy red carpet? Oh, you just can't see her out of the picture, it's Madonna. And I'm like, all these people, when we went backstage, with the Grammy, the first person that congratulated me was Taylor Swift. I was like, what on earth weird, twisted path of life? And I thought something. I went outside by myself, and I closed my eyes, and I just stood there. And I said, I want to soak this feeling into my soul, right, by myself, and just the way it felt. But a more powerful feeling hit me while I was standing there. I thought, I never, ever dreamed that my life would lead me to any moment that felt like this. That I am so blessed, and I've been blessed way more than my share of times, right? And I said, it's not even fair. But how is it I got lucky enough to be blessed enough to feel like this, to get this moment? And so a thought occurred to me. At that moment, I thought, you know what? Every human being deserves a red carpet moment. And it doesn't matter what your red carpet is. Every human being should have a chance to feel the way I felt right in that moment. So I started doing some of the programs I'm going to tell you about. We started working with the people who needed the most help. And I went into the inner city. The first place I went was the inner city in Cleveland. And I went into the worst part, and I talked to these kids who had the worst possible lives. And there was a 16-year-old girl whose mother had spent, well, I'm going to just tell you guys. She said, my mom's a crack whore. And I said, where's your dad? And she said, he got shot trying to murder someone else, so I hope he rots in hell. 16 years old. And I said, I asked these kids, what's your red carpet moment? What is a moment in your life that you'll close your eyes and say, if my whole life led me to this moment, this was a good one. This was one of the ones that I can look back and say, things came out okay. You know what this little girl said to me? She wouldn't even make eye contact because she was so beaten down by everything. She said, Jeff, just once before I die, I want my mother to say one nice thing to me. She said, I want one day in my life, and I'm sorry for the language, she said, I want one day in my life where I'm not told, you're a worthless piece of shit and I wish you'd never been born. Sorry. It really upsets me. And I stood there and said, wow, now I know what legacy is. When I told you guys before, I don't want to be measured by deals that I did. I want to be measured by how many other people's lives I made better. I knew what my job was right then. I got to find a way, and all of us do, to help the people that aren't us have their red carpet moment. Get to the place, it doesn't matter what it is. What can you do to make other people's lives better? And that's what I want to do, is look back one day and say I used my time well, not because I did things for me. It's because I found some way to make somebody else's life better. So now we're going to talk about that, the legacy. Oh, there was a last one. I just said, I tore the music thing off the window, off the mirror. And I said, one of the other things I've always dreamed of doing is making a movie. Failure, by the way, is fine, right? Don't fear failure, fear apathy. Okay, that's way worse than failure. And that was my worry was, it's okay if you try something and fail because you can shake it off and say it wasn't meant to be. But if you never try, you'll spend your whole life wondering what you could have done and wondering what about the things you never did. So one of the things is I love movies, as Dan said, and I've gone to many together. And I said one day, I said, you know what, before I die, for me to look back and say that was a good ride, I'm going to try to make a movie. And I did the same thing. I started a film company, and all of my friends gave me the same crap. You're a software engineer, what are you doing? And I said, I just don't want to look back on my life and not think it was what I wanted to do. So we started a company. This is the first movie we ever made. It's still on Netflix now. It's a scary movie. Don't watch it. You'll hate me. My mom wanted to see it, and I said, I know I'm an adult, but I'll be grounded for life if you see this movie. I have never made a movie before. This is my business partner in the film company. His name's Eli Roth. Eli had never made a movie before. We wrote it, we shot it, we produced it, we directed it, we're all in it. It's almost a home movie. We made this movie. I did the financing for it. We made this movie for $1.3 million. Now that's not Hollywood money, but that's like starting a company, right? Investing in your business money. But I do know how to market, and I do know how to promote and advertise and target audiences. So we're able to sell our film in 47 countries. And we made this movie for $1 million, and it's grossed about $110 million worldwide. Can you chase your dreams and be responsible? Yeah, run a business, right? You guys are the most important part of a business. I will say that right now. You know what's the number one reason businesses fail? Is they have no clue anything about financial management. All these businesses I deal with have never managed money. They don't know anything about finance. And people say, what's the number one thing growing companies need? And the answer is always funding. And I say, giving money to people that don't know anything about money is not actually a solution. In fact, it's a disaster waiting to happen. And it happens every day. Without financial management, that was one of the most important things I ever did, was got a guy that knew finance, because I didn't. or there was no chance we were ever going to succeed in that. So we did that in this. Eli, this was our launch point. Eli, I'm going to do a plug for him now. He has a movie out this week called The House with a Clock in Its Walls. So you should go see it. He just made that movie that he and Spielberg made. But all that started right here in a little movie we filmed in the woods of North Carolina because we wanted to have that on the list. So I'm going to end that whole section by telling you, quit using your business as an excuse not to do the things you want. Instead, and that's why I told you earlier, the one guy called me the next morning and he said, I've been running this accounting business for 22 years and I'm selling it this week. He said, I just feel like I'm not doing any of these things. It's never too late for you to do some of the things that you want to look back and say, man, that was a great ride. So now let's talk about the legacy piece. And I was walking along one day, and I told you about these inner city kids. I've been doing that all over. In fact, we did a couple here in Chicago where we let kids pitch ideas. We did Shark Tank kind of events here in Chicago with kids, and they were amazing, inner city kids especially. They never thought of themselves as business people and never thought there was a way out, right? And we told them, why don't you come up with a cool idea that you could build your whole future around? And the ideas were incredible. We did that right here in town, on the worst part of town. And these kids don't want the life they have. They want a better one. And if you help them, they can get there. So one day I'm walking along and I saw this sign. And this sign blew me away. And it made me stop in my tracks and it said, you may be successful, but will you matter? And I started thinking, you know what successful is? Another bonus, another paycheck, selling another company, making another dollar. You know what mattering is? If I can get that young girl and that 16-year-old girl at school away to college, right, and get her out of the situation she's in and giving her a chance to build her self-esteem and live a life that she loves, not the life that she has. That's mattering. There's a big difference between being successful and mattering. So I started really thinking about that, and I want to share a story with you guys. This is not my house. I just put it in. I literally Googled nice house in the Google because I just wanted to make a point. I wasn't living the life of that 16-year-old girl. Things were going pretty well, right? And I was sitting there thinking one day, and I'll tell you guys a real story. The first company that we ever sold, we sold that travel company back then. And the company that I told you about at the beginning, and the company at the time was sold for, I'm not a money-driven person. I don't really care, but the point was when people were saying it's irresponsible to go travel the world or whatever, we got paid to do it. We sold the company for over $100 million. So things were going well, right? And I went out with a bunch of friends one night after we sold the company, and now I had money, I didn't have money before that, at that moment in my life. And we had a group of people that used to go out, and it didn't matter who ate or drank what. If there were 12 of us, we'd divide the bill by 12. And so I had been in New York negotiating the sale of the company on Wall Street for weeks. And when I came back, I said, I went to dinner. I said, hey guys, I really appreciate you putting up with my crazy schedule. And I said, just want to say thanks. And I picked up the bill. They said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just going to buy dinner. And my friends said, we're not charity cases. We can feed ourselves. And I was like, whoa. And they said, we don't need you to buy us dinner. And I said, guys, it's not like I'm buying someone a house. Why are you so mad? And they said, we get it. You made money now and we didn't. And they grabbed the bill away. And I said, God, sorry, I didn't mean to offend you by offering to pay for dinner. Yeah, we get it. You have money now. Right? And I was like, geez. A few weeks later, I went to dinner with the same group. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. I didn't touch the bill. Right? But it was time to go. I said, what do I owe you guys? And they said, oh, let us get a calculator because we wouldn't want to touch an extra $1 of your precious money since that's all you care about. And I was like, what do you guys want from me? And I went home, and I'm going to be honest, I was really depressed. And I was thinking that, this isn't the way I thought it was going to be, right? This is creating more negativity. As a matter of fact, I sort of thought when you did well, you're about to see a picture of one of my very close friends now. He just recently got into the NFL Hall of Fame. When he put on the gold jacket of the Hall of Fame, he and I hugged for 10 minutes crying on each other's shoulder because I was so happy for everything he went through in his life to lead there. So I was thinking, when our company did well, somebody might actually say, good job, but instead I just got hate. So I called my dad. So why does everybody hate me? He said, they don't hate you, they hate themselves, because you went and did the stuff you said they were going to do and they didn't. And I said, well, that's still not making me feel much better. They still hate me, right? And no one wants to talk to me. And that just was bad. And I started thinking that things were less complicated before we ever made any money. And there was a song out then, I couldn't get the lyrics out of my head, The song was called No Money, Mo Problems. And I couldn't stop thinking of that lyric. And I decided I didn't want to think about this. Actually, I had a worse moment. There was a moment where I thought, I wish I never made this stupid money. And I thought, wait, that's not fair. All I did was make a plan and execute. Why am I the one who feels bad? And I was thinking, none of this feels right. So when I need a break, sports, I'm a big sports fan. And sports is my thing. So I turned it on the TV. That's my friend. His name's Ray Lewis. He played for Baltimore. I was just with Ray because he got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame after going through a lot. And it's like, I am happy for my friend. I cried for my friend, but everybody just hated me. So I turned on to watch my buddy's game, to watch Ray play. And before I got to the game, there was a news story at this time. And the news story was about, well, there was a bunch of women in a house crying. And I was like, wow, that's somewhere near me. Was there a shooting? There must have been, so I stopped. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't a shooting. I'll tell you what it was. It was a home shelter for abused women. And in this shelter, they were being evicted at midnight the next night because they ran out of money. And I didn't grow up in a home with domestic abuse, but I'll tell you why I stopped on this story. One day I was watching TV and a male reporter said something that made me sick. The female reporter reported on a woman who was a victim of domestic abuse. And you know what the man said? He said, well, why don't they just leave? You know what that implies? The first time you're abused, it's his fault. Every other time after that, it's yours, because you didn't leave. And the answer is because there's nowhere to go. If you have no money, no family, maybe even small kids, there's nowhere to go. That's why they don't leave. That's why they keep getting abused. So these two women who'd been abused decided to give them somewhere to live. They actually bought a house and told all the women in our community, if you're being abused, come here, you have somewhere to go now. But there's a problem with the real world. The real world costs money. And they didn't have any, they ran out. They were 4 months behind on their mortgage, and they were being evicted. And the reporter says to the one woman, where will you go? And she says, he told me he'd kill me if he ever found me again, so I've been hiding in this house hoping my husband never finds me. And I guess I'll live in the street. She turned to the other woman, what about you? And that woman said, I got young kids. And I'll tell you exactly what she said. He broke all my ribs twice, I can't go back there. And she said, but I have these 2 young kids. She said, I can't get a job because no one will watch the kids, and I can't pay for daycare because I can't get a job. I'm stuck here forever. And she said, now that we're being evicted, this is literally what she said. She said, I'm going to go hide in the streets, and I hope I don't get kidnapped or raped with my children in the streets. The woman reporter did something that they do every day of their lives. It's not their fault. She said, after those 2 ladies, she turned back and she said, coming up next, sports. Do you realize, I use that as a thing now. We live in a coming up next sports world. One day I was watching TV, and the woman said, Indonesian tsunami death toll hits 90,000. Coming up next, Monday Night Football. That's the world we live in. And so you know what happened when that happened? I thought something that every one of you have thought. You can't deny this. I didn't want these women on my screen because I already had a bad day and they were making me feel bad, right? So as the channel changed, I thought this, they should help those women, right? That's what you do when you see a problem. Man, they should help those women. That's what I thought. And then the epiphany moment that changed my life happened right then. I thought this, if every person watching this show right now says they should help those women, who's helping those women? Nobody. Because that's the world we live in. Everyone says, man, they should do something about that. So I stood up and I wrote on my board the 4 most important words in my entire life. The 4 words that when friends of mine say, are you ever going to retire? I'll tell you the 4 reasons why I don't. There is no day. They don't help those women, guys. You do. We do. This community needs a lot of help here in Chicago. They aren't going to fix it. It's not the mayor. It's not anybody else. If it's not you, it's no one. I wrote on the wall, there is no they. And I got up the next morning and I called the news station and I got all the information. And the money that we had just made, that I hated the night before, thank God I worked so hard. Because all of a sudden I said, boy, it's a good thing I have that. And it's a good thing I worked that hard because somebody needs it. And I will tell you what we did was we did this anonymously. I didn't want to be part of the story. I didn't want my name in it or anything. So we didn't do a check. We didn't do a wire. We did this in all cash. We paid all of their back rent. We wired them. We gave them, sorry, we had it delivered. We paid all of their next year's bills. We gave them enough money to build, to hire 2 security guards and a security system. Because I was up all night thinking that poor woman, every sound she hears in that house every night, she thinks it's the husband because he's looking for her and he said he'd kill her, right? And then we also gave them enough money to build a daycare center and hire people so these women could actually get a job and have a chance at moving on with their life. And I wrote something, well, I'll tell you what happened. The next day, the news was on again. And that woman was back in the house, and the news reporter. And I turned the TV on, and all the women were crying, and I was like, oh my God, note to self, never give bags of cash to strangers, right? They're somewhere in Brazil by now, because we had cash delivered. And the woman said, this time they're tears of joy. And she turned to the woman that ran the house, and she said, what happened? And she said, we don't know, it was a miracle. Somebody anonymously paid for everything. And we're covered for a year, and we're building a security system, and we're adding child care. She said it was a miracle. I'm going to tell you guys what, I walked right over to my board and I wrote that down. Your success is someone else's miracle. The harder you work, the more profitable your company is, the more miracles you should be creating in your community, because you can. And I'm going to tell you another thing. I never in my life felt bad about making money again or focusing on profits. The shame in life is not in making money, guys. It's in not using your success to help others. So let me tell you what we do with that. And it's something that I'm going to challenge you guys to do. I just have 2 more parts of this presentation. What we established then was we set up community projects. And so this is what we would do at my companies. Every quarter, we take a percentage of the company's profits, which turns out the people who are in this room are the only ones who actually know what the company's profits are. So I had to keep asking. I'm not a finance guy. We take a percentage of the company's profits, and we put them in a community fund. And I tell the employees, you guys use this. By the way, the reason that's important is you still got to run a good business. If you are not running a profitable, well-run business, you can't do anything. So the employees know business first. But once they make profits, we take a percentage of them, and I put them in the fund, and I let the employees, you guys decide who you want to help. Every quarter, I want you to help someone in our community. I want to tell you how this works, because one day I went in to the conference room. They're all drawing something on the board. And my lawyer's in there. And I was like, what is this meeting that everyone in the company's invited to except me, the CEO? And they're like, oh, we were going to get you. I said, what are you doing? And they said, we're doing a calendar. We're going to double shifts, babysitting each other's kids and pets so we can work around the clock. I said, for what? And they pointed at the lawyer and they said, we noticed in this big contract we have with a big company that there was a performance clause. If we finish the project ahead of schedule and under budget, the company gets a $100,000 bonus. And I said, well, now I know why you're working around the clock, because you guys want the money. They said, yeah, about that. We don't want the money. I said, then what am I missing here? They said, we want you to give us the money, the full 100 grand, for the community fund. They said, it's not in the budget, right? It's a bonus. We don't forecast those. And I said, you're right, it's not in the budget. They said, then we'll work around the clock if we can have the money. I said, guys, what's going on? They said, we were thinking about what happened with the women's shelter. And by the way, what happened was my employees came in at that time, and they said, they found out. They said, you did that, didn't you? And I said, no, you did that. Because without a profitable company with good employees delivering, there's no money to help anybody in the community. So, let me tell you what happened at this one. There was a tenement house not far from where we were. It burned down. The people in it were poor. They had no insurance. They literally lost everything they owned, all their clothing, all their belongings. They got out with nothing but their lives and the clothes they were wearing. And my employees said, we want the money to build 4 houses. I said, guys, we're software engineers. We don't know how to build houses. They said, we already call it Habitat for Humanity. They'll build them and they'll show us how, but they were thrilled that we're coming with funding. I said, then go finish them. Think about the triple bottom line. My customer was thrilled. We finished under budget and ahead of time. My company looks great. We deliver under budget and ahead of time. And my employees are motivated, right? And the community wins. They built 4 houses. One of the girls that works for me started coming in 10 minutes later every day. And I said, are you driving a different route? She said, I am. I said, what? Just curious. What's the story? And she said to me, every morning now on the way to work, I pull off the road, I go park in front of those 4 houses. I watch 4 families get their kids ready for school in safety, in electricity, in running water, in a brand new home. Then I drive to work. She said, Jeff, every day I'm fired up when I come in here. Imagine your employees driving through a part of town past a family that they made better because of your company's success. My employees are so motivated to go do another project and finish ahead of time and help somebody else. By the way, I will say this before I go into the last part. People say to me, sure, when our company's profitable, we'll do that. And I want to make it clear, you don't need money, right? It's time, treasure, talent. The money, treasure is money, but time and talent, there's a lot you can do. So one quarter, 2 customers deferred. And so I went in to tell the employees, there's no money in this quarter, you can't help anybody. And they were busy doing, I said, what are you guys doing? They said, yeah, we already know there's no profits this quarter, but we did something anyway. I said, what? They said, Christmas is coming, winter is coming. So we picked the 9 worst senior citizen homes in the worst part of town. We collected coats, we collected socks, we collected pillows, we collected food, and we all baked stuff. They said, we're going to deliver clothing and food to 9 senior citizens' homes and sing Christmas carols. So I went. By the way, the reason I have that picture is we went to the first one, we sang the first song, and I stood there and said, oh my God, we are software engineers and no one in my whole company could sing. We were horrible, screeching horrible. And I stopped and I said to the folks, I said, look, I'm really sorry that no one in my company can sing. And this little old lady says, Mr. Hoffman, come here. And I come over closer and she grabs the back of my head and bends me down and she goes, it's okay, no one in this whole building can hear. I said, why are you clapping? She said, it's conceptual. You don't need to have money to make a difference in your community. But my employees drive past the women's shelter. They drive past the homes we built. They drive, one of them still goes to the senior citizen center. And she checks on women that aren't even her family because their families abandoned them. My employees love working at a company that actually citizenship is real. And they work harder to be able to do that. Now, this is the last part I want to share with you, which is leaving a legacy for your employees. I'm going to tell you the story of how I got to this, because this is not something that I had ever thought about, really. And here's how it came about to me. Somebody called me. This guy said, hey, Jeff, I want you to come interview. I'm building a company. I need to hire people. I want to hire you. And I started to say, we're building our own company, right? No thanks. But I realized I am a software engineer. Now I'm a CEO, and I've never taken one single class in HR. I don't actually know how to hire anybody. They've been hiring away. So I was like, I'll go to an interview and see how good people interview people. So I went to the interview, and here's how interviews go. Because employment is so one way. I walk in, and I say, Dan, this is my company. This is our company, our mission statement, our goals, our strategies, right? It's my dream. My company, my plans, our dream. And then a job description, as I say to Dan, here's a list of tasks. If you do them, you will get paid. If you don't, you will stop being paid. Right? How's this motivating? And so the guy gave me that pitch, and he said, any questions? And I said, let me get this straight. You want me to work like a dog so one day you can buy that boat you've always dreamed of? And the owner of the company said, well, not really, but kind of. And I said, yeah, I was being sarcastic. I was like, how is this motivating? A job is this thing. We will pay you as long as you don't screw up. And then you'll help us achieve our goals, right? In a big company, as you move down the chain, employees are like, my brilliant idea got my boss a promotion, right? It's not motivating. And so I tell you what I do now. I never start any interview, ever, with anything about the company or anything about the job. I don't ask to see a resume. I ask every person when I would interview, when I was building companies, the following questions. So when I ask you guys, I say, before we start, tell me one thing that you need to do with your life so you'll look back and say, wow, time well spent. Same question I ask you guys. Just give me one. And so the first time I ever did that, it was an engineering job, and this guy's name was Chris, and I'm being honest, I thought he was going to say, Jeff, if this is some left coast Zen meditation crap, I'm out, right? I thought he was going to say that. It's an engineering job. He didn't. I said, Chris, before we start, can you tell me one thing you need to do with your life so you look back and say, time well spent? He said, yeah, that's easy. He said, buy my mom a house in Florida fully paid. I said, wow, that's really specific. Tell me. He said, Jeff, we grew up in a mobile home park, but we were the poor people in a mobile home park. He said, we grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, and we didn't have a mobile home, we had a trailer. And he said, the difference is mobile homes have rooms and doors. Trailer is just one room. We had an Airstream. It was so old it was rusted. Him and his mom and his sister. He said, the metal was rusted, and the snow came in, the holes in winter. He said, we only had one blanket. I said, why didn't your mom get help? And he said, my mom was afraid that if people at her work knew just how poor we were, it would change their perception of her. And she's right. If she'd gone and told people, so she didn't ask for help. I said, what did you do? He said, I took the blanket and put it on the wall to keep the snow from coming in every night. Watched my mom and my sister shiver all night. And I said, how'd you get through those nights? And he said, I laid there every night of my life and said, somehow I will have a career that is successful enough to buy my mom a house in the warm Florida sun, fully paid, so she can spend the rest of her life as a thank you for the sacrifice she made to be my mother. And I said, dude, you're hired. And he said, you didn't interview me yet. I said, oh, yes, I did. I said, you're hired. Chris became one of my, and I wrote something else on my wall that night. I wrote, employees driven by passion and purpose far outperform people driven by paycheck. If all you want is a paycheck and the company starts to hurt, you're gone, right? But people that have a purpose, one day things were tough and Chris came in. I said, what do you need? He said, no, what do you need? He said, because my mom's life depends on this company, so whatever we got to do, let's do it. We are not failing. That's the kind of people you want to build your future around. That's the kind of people that should be your top level people driving your company. I'll tell you how this story ended. That was the company that was acquired, and I got a chance. Chris bought his mom a house. Oh no, sorry, that's the one we took public. And I got to go with Chris. And when we went there down in Florida, it was kind of a setup. Because for whatever reason, to set her up, he told his mom it was my house. So we went into the house, and his mother looked, and she got pissed. She got angry. And she turned to her son and said, you brought me all the way to Florida to show me that your friend here, your boss, got a new house in Florida? Oh, I forgot to tell you something. When Chris told me that, I printed this picture. That's the actual picture. And I stuck it on the wall. And the next day, my employees came in and they said, what is that? I said, that is the reason Chris comes into this office every single day. What is yours? And I can tell you something. I went and asked every employee. I can tell you, if you went to my offices then, you would see on the walls of what looks like a random photo near where everybody works. It's not. I can tell you the reason that every single person works for me. I can tell you something in their life that they got to do that will make their life an epic one. And so these random pictures on the wall aren't. One day, everybody was leaving, and they said, are you going home? I said, I'll see you guys later. They said, what are you working on? I said, the porch outside Chris's mother's house. Figuratively, every single person in my company got that. We work for a reason, and it isn't just yours. It isn't just the company's vision statement if you want to achieve that. So anyway, we go to the house. She thinks it's my house. By the way, she thinks it's my house especially because, remember I told you they had a one-room trailer, they had no furniture. So all the furniture is new, so she assumes it's not hers. But one of the things that we did was we got her out of the house for a week vacation in Florida. While she was gone, we had them ship her bedroom set, which is the only thing she had. And one of the things Chris told me is, when my mom's really insecure in the middle of the night, she brushes her hair like 1,000 times. And so her hairbrush, she keeps at a 90-degree angle on her nightstand so she can reach it in the middle of the night when she's feeling really insecure. So I had them ship it. And I took her hairbrush and put it on the nightstand at a 90-degree angle. When she opened the door and looked in that room and turned back with tears in her eyes and said, this is my house, isn't it? That was one of the best days of my entire life, and it wasn't even my mom. We were all three crying like babies. And she said, you did this for me. I said, no, your son did this for you. The only reason this company had the money to give your son so he could buy you a house was because I have the best employees in the world. We beat everybody in the industry because my employees are the most motivated and focused. I said, your kid did this and he bought this house. And that day, standing there with her in tears, and Chris turned to me and said something that blew me away. I thought he was going to say, thanks, Jeff, I'm done. I got mine, I'm out of here. You know what he said? He said, we should go back to the office. I said, what for? He said, let's go back to the wall and see who's next. I've never been more proud of the quality of people I hire. And that's the last part I want to tell you guys about today, about building, about how you create that legacy. And to achieve all this stuff is based on the quality of people that your organization hires. So I'm going to finish this last part. I used to write the innovation and entrepreneurship column for Inc. magazine. And one day they said, write about leadership. And I wrote an article, the title of which is, Hire the Best and Go Pick Up Their Laundry. If you still want to read it, it's on Inc.com under my name. But I'm going to tell you what happened. And this is when I realized what leadership, because everybody in this room, you're leaders, right? What leadership really is. And it's not what I thought it is. It's not you running the company at all. It's the servant leadership model. Here's what happened. I'm on the road, and my employees call, and they said, hey man, we met this 20-year-old whiz kid. I was like, don't even wait for me, hire him. So they hired the kid, product developer. 20-year-old kid. And I am out of town, I come back to the office, and he doesn't know I'm the CEO, doesn't know it's my company. And I get back in the morning, I spent the morning reviewing his work. And at lunch, I went down the hall, they were working through lunch. So I went in there, and I said, can I get you guys anything? And I meant lunch. And the 20-year-old, remember, he doesn't know I'm the CEO, he doesn't know it's my company. He glances over, he's busy, he said, would you go pick up my dry cleaning? Everyone in the office goes like this. Oh my God, that poor kid just stepped in it. He just asked the CEO to go pick up his dry cleaning. And they're all looking at me and like waiting to see what's happening to the kids, and they look at me to see what I'm gonna say. And I said, sure, where's the ticket? He said, it's on my chair. I said, see it. So I walk into the parking lot a few minutes later. My two vice presidents come running out. Jeff, we are so sorry. Mr. Hoffman, we're so sorry. He didn't know who you were. You know, we feel bad. And they're like, are you that angry? And I said, what do you mean? You're walking around outside? I said, I'm going to my car. And they said, where are you going? I said, pick up the kid's laundry. And like, you're picking up that kid's laundry? And I said, let me tell you guys something. That kid is building the best product I've ever seen. That kid is building a product that will triple this company's revenues. That kid's building a product that will win every award in our industry from every customer, and it did. I got to go out to go out to Silicon Valley from a non-California company, and we won the ICE Award, Internet Commerce, for the best internet product of the year that kid designed. I said, no, that kid's gonna make everyone in this building famous if that's what you care about. I said, so not only as the CEO, am I going to pick up this kid's dry cleaning, but if you guys need me later when I get back, I will be outside washing that kid's car. Okay? Your job is to hire people smarter than you and get out of the way. Stop running everything and focus on surrounding yourself with people that are so much smarter than you that they don't even need you. Spend time. So you know what I do now? In all my companies, I would schedule one day a month, if not more, where I called it Culture Day. That day, my job was not to run the finance department or whatever you do. My job was to figure out how to build the finance department that the best people in the whole industry all want to work here and never want to leave. By the way, I got a call one day when we sold that other company from a woman that ran HR for me. I want to tell you about her in a second. She said, Jeff, this is amazing. I just verified it. She said, from the day you started that company to the day you sold it, not one person that worked for you has ever quit. I said, that's the most important thing I've ever done, and I have no idea how I did that. I started calling employees. I said, why don't you guys quit? And they're like, do you want us to quit? I said, no, I just don't understand why. Why nobody quits. This is the stuff they shared with me. I said, wait, let me get a pencil, because this is my actual job, not running the department, not running the company. My job is to build a place you guys never want to leave so that the best people in the industry all wind up here. That is why all of our companies work, is because as leaders, the focus was on taking care of them. By the way, one of them we talked about, which was the, I'm going to add one last thing and I'll stop, which was the, when I was asking people, what is it that, how do I make this the place you never want to leave, right? And employees, I had a bunch of single moms, and they said daycare is stressful. We're leaving our kids with people that work at a daycare that we didn't interview, we didn't hire. You interview them before you pick the daycare, but you have no control of the staff. With other kids, we don't know. And I said, what would make it better? And one of the women said, if there was daycare here and they were with the other employees' kids, and I could walk down the hall and see them. So you know what we did? We invested in building a little daycare at our company and hiring people that, I let the moms at my company hire the staff for daycare, and it was adjacent to our building so they could walk over there at lunch and check on their kids. They hired the people that were sitting them, and they were with the other employees' kids. That was one of the reasons they said they didn't want to quit. Your job is to create that environment. The last thing I want to say about talent for all of you is the best people in the world, in order for you to do this, the best business is to build a company that can leave a legacy. The best people in the world they don't come to you. And I know the business that you two are in. The truth is, so don't be offended by this, because you guys got to go find those people, and we count on you. But when you're employing people, in fact, actually, it's more of a reason they should call you. Because when a lot of people tell me we post jobs, do you know who responds those posting to that job? People that lost theirs. Okay? So I'm going to tell you the story. I wanted someone to run HR for me. And I thought if I post an HR job, the people that will reply will be the people that lost their HR job, which is probably not what I'm looking for. Probably some of the best people in the market are still employed, right? And in fact, they probably have 3 backup offers. So I just want to say this about talent. They're probably not necessarily going to respond to a job you just posted online and they're sure as heck not gonna wander into your office. So I'm gonna tell you another thing that I do, is I would schedule one day every month that I would go talent hunting. One day I'm out of the office and I'm just hunting for talent, because the companies that make a difference are the ones, you can't build greatness on the backs of mediocre, right? Talent is everything. It's the scarcest resource in the world. It's not financial capital, it's human capital. And so I'll just give you this one last story. I wanted an HR person, and I didn't run an ad, right, the old way. I just didn't go on some online site. And so I went and called, one of my employees' wife was in HR. And I called her, and I said, where do HR people hang out? And she said, SHRM. I said, what is SHRM? She said, Society for Human Resource Managers. And I said, I don't know what that is. She said, Google it. So I Googled it, and on the homepage of SHRM, it said, don't forget to register for our big national event. So I registered. I had to skip half the questions about my job as an HR manager. I went there. People said, you do HR? I said, no. And they said, what are you doing here? I said, shooting fish in a barrel. There's 1,000 HR managers and me, someone who needs an HR manager. And then I started thinking, where is the best talent? And I started thinking, if you go to a conference, who are the speakers? It's probably not the woman that won Worst HR Manager of the Year, right? So I looked at the speakers, I circled the 12 names. The keynote speaker was the woman that won HR Manager of the Year for the whole nation for SHRM. I waited for her after her talk, finally talked her into having coffee with me. By the time I left town, I hired Angela. She came back to our company, she quit her job, she ran HR for 4 of my companies. She was incredible. She was the reason, not me, that people that work for us almost never quit. Everything I talked about is a function of running a successful, profitable company. It enables you to leave a legacy. It enables your company to leave a legacy in the community. It enables your employees. So I just wanted to end on that note, that again, you can't build greatness on the backs of mediocre. You got to build teams of people that actually care. A CEO said to me recently, he said, Jeff, he heard this talk, and he said, how do I convince my employees that I care? I said, wait, what? He said, how do I get my employees to think that I care? And I said, this might be a radical, crazy idea, but how about actually caring? And you know what he said to me? He said, no, really. And I said, you got the wrong guy, call someone else. Thank you guys very much for your time.